This episode of the Good Ship Brothership was recorded last minute last night, and as such, I've had no time or desire, frankly, to create a fake sponsorship. So, here we are, and with that in mind, here's the show. Please don't touch the spout.
It's hot.
Like, yeah, well, so's the rest of it. You don't have to, like, finger the spout like that. It's very... Stop. That's actually really gross.
It's not gonna do anything to you.
Who knows what you've been doing with those fingies at Jiu-Jitsu. Okay. You're aboard the Good Ship Brothership, the only arts podcast to cover film, music, gaming, literature, and camel racing. I'm Grant, and this is my brother Jason. Jason.
Yes.
What are we talking about today? You alert son of a gun, you.
Today we are talking about Roman lips.
My gas is really kicking in already, and it literally was not even happening before we just sat down.
Let's try again. Today we are talking about Roman Lips, the Omar Rodriguez Lopez album, which has just come out a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we are also talking about the 2013 movie Locke. 2014 movie starring Tom Hardy and Danny DeVito.
Yes. I think we should pass laws about how many times Danny DeVito should be in films. Like, there should be a quota that...
As in, like, once per movie, twice per movie?
No, that, like, a certain amount of movies have to be produced every year
with him
containing Danny DeVito.
Yeah, I mean 5.
Also, before we continue, I feel like the microphone is unusually high and it's obstructing an unusually large swath of your face.
I got it.
No, yeah, just loosen that one. This is gonna make a terrible sound, people. I'm sorry.
Maybe not.
No, Jason, I know microphones.
What if I'm gentle?
Not even your spatula-like fingers can... Oh, much. No, that's too low now. Yeah, okay, that's good. That's fine.
Okay, so...
Do you want to flip the puppet? Yeah, let's flip the puppet. Well, shouldn't we do this first?
Oh, right. Welcome aboard. Sail ho. Here we go.
Howdy doody.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, ready, go!
Oh, we're not doing that.
We're not singing?
That meme's over, man.
That's getting loud.
It's not.
I guess not.
No. Okay, every episode you do this. You're like, oh, it's loud.
I know,
don't
it's
really
always
care.
too quiet.
This time I really don't care about the...
Can we pour the tea?
Yeah, let's pour the tea. I don't care about this music. I can't give a fart about it, and I'm farting more than I'd like to.
You could give a fart about it, but you're not going to.
Yeah, I'm holding my farts in.
Ready?
Okay, take
Thank
that.
you. What kind of tea are we drinking? I legitimately don't know this time.
Dutch missionary tea. That's a joke.
You might want to stop that.
Oh, yes, that, yeah. Okay, hey.
How are you today, Grant?
I've had indigestion all day.
Now, I mean...
Because it was my birthday yesterday. And it turns out that'll give you indigestion if you're not careful.
Now, we do share a building. We do share a room.
The residency.
Today, I really didn't see you much at all. So I feel like this is going to be, in some ways, a less contrived conversation. Because...
I got a good vocal take done today.
And we haven't really talked about the movie we're reviewing today at all. And we haven't really talked about the album very much in a critical sense.
Yeah. Which is something we learned to do after, like, the first couple episodes when we would argue viciously about
everything beforehand.
Our viewpoints, and then sit down and try and have a genuine discussion. I need to cut your hair again soon also, because it's not looking as fresh as it was. It still looks fine, don't get me wrong. But it's not crisp. That's not the same as...
It's not?
No, I do it much better. Also, this is the caramel whatever tea. Is that what it is? No. It's something... No, it's some latte. Something... No, there's caramel in it.
Oh, creme caramel?
No. I think it's called caramel dookie.
Reminds me of my youth. Okay,
Let's flip the puppet.
Eyes up, is going to be the movie.
Sure. I have no vested stake in this. Whoa, jeez.
The movie it is.
Okay, so our first...
Okay, hang on.
Oh, jeez.
So my phone is plugged into this computer on a very short USB cable. Forgot about it. Picked up my phone, and it actually scared me. Like, I jumped when my phone was, like, tethered. So...
You thought it was possessed, but it's just a BlackBerry. Okay, so the movie we're going to be talking about right now is one called Locke. Oh, darn, I can't Google it. I was going to look up the director, because I'd like to do a little rundown of these things before we talk about them.
We really should write them down.
I know. Well, I wrote some stuff down. It was released March 2014. The budget was $2 million, which is
tiny.
Insanely tiny.
But, I mean, look at the...
I think roughly the size of Embrace of the Serpent's budget. If I remember correctly, I think it was $2 million.
And one of them is a better movie than the other.
Yeah. And it took $5 million at the office. So that would
250% is good.
I think that they say you have to... I don't know if this only applies to big blockbusters, probably, but they say that after you make your budget back twice, then you start making money or something like that.
And now I will say,
just because of
and this isn't even really part of a review or a judgment on it. It is a movie that I don't think it would be like that good to see in a theater compared to like Mad Max. You want to see in theater. We didn't.
Locke, I think is better served by watching, as I think both of us did, alone in the dark.
Yeah. So how would you describe Locke?
It's a very, very simple, very straightforward, contained story about one man whose life is falling apart, and it just stays with him over an uninterrupted hour-and-a-half car drive from one place to another. And we're going to do our level best to avoid spoilers. I don't think the main hinge, I don't think the main driver of the plot is necessarily a spoiler.
Here's what my gauge would be.
Also, it stars Tom Hardy and the one guy who he's on the phone with a bunch. His one like coworker or whatever. Yeah, you know who that actor also played? Professor Moriarty in the Sherlock TV series. Yeah, so there you go.
Huh.
Yeah, crazy.
So what I would say is anything that happens within, give or take, the first 15 minutes isn't a spoiler. Yeah, because it happens like in the opening fifth.
Is that in the opening 15 minutes? I can't remember though.
I would say so.
It might be.
Let's avoid it.
Yeah, we'll avoid it. Also, I brought up some of the IMDb goofs of Locke, which here it does say 2013, so you might be right.
I kind of thought it was 2013.
But there are some continuity errors in some pretty significant errors, really, which was actually quite interesting. But anyway, so it stars Tom Hardy as Ivan Locke, somebody who works in the concrete business. He pours the foundations for these big skyscrapers.
He's the foreman.
Yeah, in London. And from early on, you know, he's very passionate about what he does. You know, he views the buildings and the work that he does with a kind of poetic eye.
He talks about stealing pieces of sky, which I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it's like I said, like I described, it's a very contained movie, both in terms of set and story.
The entire thing happens in real time, as it were.
Yeah.
You know.
Pretty much.
There are no cuts in time, I don't think.
There are some small cuts, but it's not implied that like any significant time has passed.
Yeah.
Which normally wouldn't work. However, I think that this movie pulls it off decently well. Do you want me to do my review first?
Let me do my review first.
Okay. Go ahead.
I think I really liked right off the bat. The first note I made was it was around 3.5 minutes before anybody talks, like, at all. And there are no...
Do you remember what the opening shot is?
It's him getting in his car, like him walking up to his car, getting in it, diesel BMW X3. And I just thought it was a great mood setter. There's some good music going on in the background. And I mean, while we're on that subject, I don't know about you, I thought the music was very good and really pulled the story along, provided tension, like provided emotional context, like
And it wasn't, the music was never really hugely standoutish. It was kind of, whoa.
Some tea just kind of came out of my mouth there.
It was kind of, from what I recall, it was kind of a arpeggiated electric guitar sort of. It was a very contemporary soundtrack.
It's like what do you call like indie authling? Like what genre is
ambient.
that? Yeah,
like
it's ambient.
It was sort of ambient, but it's still recognizable electric guitar. It's not just a wash of sound or anything. But and a lot of times I find that kind of style in terms of a score lacks personality. But I did find that it fit and sat with the setting very well. Also, neither of us are wearing white wife beaters.
Sorry,
everybody. Actually, okay. No, wait. We are wearing white wife beaters.
You'll never know.
Okay, sorry. Continue.
So, carrying on with the pros. I'll kind of try and do pros and cons, but it's all going to be mixed in. The movie is gorgeously shot for what it is. There are no, sweeping vistas or anything. It's mostly closer shots of him in his car, or, almost the whole movie is him making phone calls to other people. And so you'll see incoming call and it focuses in on like the screen in his car. And just the color balance is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's almost, not literally of course, but in a sense it's like almost monochrome, except instead of black and white, it's blue and yellow. Almost everything is like a shade of blue and yellow with like the different lights. And as we know from our art classes as children, blue and yellow opposing on the color wheel look beautiful together. And also the colors really come and go with like the emotions, like deeper saturated colors and then like washed out stuff. I noticed that was like really well and subtly done. I
didn't notice that. Not overtly anyway.
I think there are really interesting comparisons to 3/4 Home, which we reviewed a couple shows ago.
Yeah, you brought this up. I wish you hadn't brought it up to me yesterday.
It was one of the only things we said. I promise. We're not talking behind your back.
Yeah, we're not doing this without your consent, everybody. But we are actually. We are recording these without anybody's consent.
Heck you.
Whoa. Anyway. But yeah, no, Jason drew this parallel between this movie and 3/4 Home. Both are about people having issues with their families in cars, driving in real time to differing destinations, and that kind of blew my mind a little bit because I honestly hadn't even...
Really?
Yeah, I totally hadn't thought of that at all.
But then there are also some contrasts, which not all of which we can get into for spoiler reasons.
Well, one's a dude, one's a girl.
Yeah.
One's having dude problems, one's we're not even sure what kind of problems she's having.
And that actually brings us really neatly to one of my problems with Locke's narrative. I don't think it was ambiguous enough. I don't want a story that's like impossible to understand, but I kind of think that with Locke they left, like, there was nothing that was left up in the air, like no mysteries. They just told you everything like really straight.
Well, I mean, the way the entire situation resolves is a mystery, or whether or not it even does resolve.
Yeah.
That's never addressed.
That's true. But I mean, I suppose a good narrative to me has to have, you always have to have just as many questions as you have answers so that you're still engaged and interested. And I just never quite felt that I had that many questions. Let's see. I did put down, although I totally loved the music, it would have been interesting to see it with a more minimal score. And just because it might have had a more isolated feel.
Yeah.
But, that's just an observation.
No, I hear you. It would have been nice to have a stretch where all you hear is like the cars swishing past or whatever.
They have really great transition shots where like the police go by.
Yeah. And
that always kind of like signals a new scene or something. And so I think that things like that are really good segmenters, I guess you might say, for like different acts of the story. I have a question to ask you off air about it too. Also, I appreciate, this isn't a spoiler to say, there aren't really any bad guys. There's a lot of conflict between like normal, air quotes, people. But you can kind of see where all of them are coming from. And depending on your perspective, anybody in the story could be a good guy or a bad guy, including the protagonist.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, I thought it was an interesting movie, thought-provoking, kind of outside the norm. I didn't think it was great, but I thought it was very good. Definitely worth a watch. Yeah. But I don't think it was, like, in my hall of greatness.
I think I liked it quite a bit more than you.
Yeah.
No, I'm kind of conflicted about this movie because I can't find a lot that I thought was wrong with it, but I also didn't walk away going, wow. But then again, that's the whole point. I think the movie achieves what it sets out to do brilliantly. I think that there are very few things that I would hold against it in terms of it going against its character.
Yeah, and like talk about not overreaching your narrative, which we discussed, I think, last episode maybe.
Yeah.
This is such a, like...
It's kind of been a running thread, actually.
Yeah. Basically, nobody outside of the story would have been affected, and, like, that's fine. And they didn't try and make it a bigger thing than it was. Well, I guess, like... Yeah.
It would have been very hard to overreach that narrative. So it's... I think Tom Hardy's acting in it. Like, Tom Hardy's amazing as an actor. I think he is one of the best male actors in Hollywood right now.
His performance was very good.
I think he's I don't think he's underrated, but I think that he hasn't necessarily been given pundits as a, in air quotes, serious actor.
Yeah.
That he probably deserves. His reactions to what's going on around him and to conversations and stuff are like very well underplayed, and it is as if he's in the car by himself and nobody's watching.
Yeah.
And it was a very impressive performance. There's one conversation with his son during which he just like silently cries while talking to his son, and that part wrecked me pretty hard. I didn't like bawl my eyes out, but I was doing the same thing he was doing.
The song, oh my goodness. The movie affected me very much emotionally, for sure.
And that's where I'm going next, because talk about feeling empathetic to a protagonist. Wow. Like, I was like in the pit of my stomach. I could feel like knots of like stress as I watched this guy wade through just like this river of crap that he has brought upon himself, basically.
Mm-hmm, totally.
And that he's owning and facing up to, and that he's gonna go face. And I felt like I was him in that car on my way to confront a mistake. And his resolve is he's totally believable as a character. Yeah. That's the thing. Not only is he totally believable as a character, but we understand him. And that's where you and I differ on. You didn't like how much they fleshed out his character or whatever. I thought they fleshed out his character very well.
I just thought there could have been a bit more like questions, like a couple more things for you to chase mentally.
Maybe so, but I think the establishing him as somebody who's very proud of what he does, and but he still does this very like blue collar kind of work, just pouring concrete, but he literally loves the concrete. He finds it poetic and noble in a weird way, and that really establishes him as a character and how he deals with these problems. So I thought like it was I felt so empathetic and sympathetic towards him, and I really felt like I was him.
You know, the movie actually affected me so much that, I don't know, like 10 minutes out from the end, I stopped and consciously thought to myself in my mind, I was like, you know, this isn't actually happening.
I know, exactly.
I was like,
exactly.
It's okay.
Yeah.
This is just a story.
Yeah, it's exactly that sort
but
of
at the same time, it's like, not that it's like relatable to me personally, because it's not, but it's something that would be relatable to a lot of people. Like, it's not a really out there story.
It's totally not far-fetched at all.
Yeah. But yeah, I totally had to stop and be like, this isn't actually happening. Chill out.
And then in that vein, it was a tough watch.
Yeah.
I found it to be an incredibly tough watch, and definitely not a movie I'll be rushing back to see.
No.
And it's not because it wasn't good, it's because of how good it was and how tough it was and how well it was presented. It clearly it stressed both of us out.
Yeah, and it made me wonder, and please write this down, seriously.
Yeah.
Because I think this would be an interesting future topic for when we have a different episode. I was thinking today, like, for a while, why is it that we, like, enjoy or want to watch movies like that are, like, it wasn't fun, it wasn't enjoyable, it was a really good movie, but I don't know, I just don't really have the answers to that.
I think, I'm just finishing my note there.
Even, like, sad music helps you feel better.
It's relatability, right? I think is a big part of it. And it's empathize. We human beings want to reciprocate and want to empathize with each other.
I guess that's
we
true.
crave that kind of human connection. And when you can make that connection through any sort of artistic medium, and you feel the emotion that is put into it and portrayed, and you feel it in a visceral gut level like you and I did, that's something that'll stick with you. And I'll tell you, this movie, Locke, has stuck with me.
Yeah.
As I was hanging up laundry today, I was thinking of, like, the emotion that it elicited in me. And I and you both watched it not in one sitting.
Correct.
Just because of time and life and stuff like that.
Which I don't like doing, but no. I think this was an okay movie to do that with.
It was okay. Now, some things that I really don't have, like, a lot to say against it, but the one thing that I kind of didn't like was there are scenes where he talks to his father, like he's imagining conversations, one-sided conversations with his father, whom he imagines is watching his son deal with this catastrophe from the backseat of his car. Yeah. And I felt like those conversations were a little overplayed. And I mean, I think everybody has those kinds of conversations, like you're talking to somebody out loud by yourself while you're in the car, or
I don't know that I've ever done that.
Well, I think, that's just your lack of neuroses that you have to deal with,
I guess. But that's a great point.
But I think that those scenes, just to finish, were just ever so slightly over the top, and they did bring me out a bit, and they were a little cartoony, and the sentiments that he was putting out, however valid they might have been, were just a little too blasé, a little too passé, and a little too run-of-the-mill for what the rest of the movie was, how grounded it was.
Yeah, and see, this is actually a great example of what I was talking about with ambiguity, is I think it would have been great if somebody referenced, or he referenced, that his father wasn't really there for him, and then kind of left it at that. I think it didn't, like, at one point he's like, you came back to me and you said you stopped smoking dope and you stopped drinking, and I'm like, well, that's kind of just needless exposition, like, I would rather understand he has...
Yeah, that was the only part where the script felt a little, like...
contrived.
Yeah, like, if you were reading this, you might think twice before reading it out or acting it.
That said, though, in closing, for me, and then you can... I think this movie is incredibly objectively good in that...
Yeah.
I don't really think... Like, you don't have to enjoy it, of course. But I don't think you can dispute that, like, the cinematography was very good, the acting was very good, the script and storyline were very good, like, the pacing and length were perfect. It wasn't too long, it was the perfect length, actually. So, in that regard, I think they did a very good job.
I think it was Roger Ebert, who said that all good movies are machines for empathy. I think that's a legitimate quote of his. And I like how I felt the need to, like, validate that completely needlessly. But
that's real, I'm telling you.
It's real. Seriously, guys.
It's going to be great.
But yeah, and that's exactly what this movie does. Visually, which I haven't touched on yet, like, gorgeous. Yeah. Just sumptuous, glorious visuals that you just want to sink your teeth into. He's driving along, and the other car's headlights or the street lights are just these rivers of bokeh flowing past on his windows. You see his face. His face, like you mentioned, actually has that yellowish tinge that somebody's face gets underneath the street lights through the UV protection of
it's so good.
And he looks exhausted and haggard, not because they've caked his face with makeup, but because of Tom's excellent acting and because of that lighting. Everybody's been in that lighting. Yeah. Everybody's driven late into the night and felt that. And I felt like I was in there with him. The ending shot as well, I really, really liked.
Yeah, I agree.
It just felt good.
Yeah,
like it felt like a release. The movie felt like, and this is just coming to me now, like we dropped into his life and then ascended back out of it.
Yeah, I agree.
And it didn't feel like it was abrupt or random. It felt like it made sense, and it felt like we helped him. In a lot of ways, it felt like we were with him. We saw him through this difficult time, and then sent him on his way. And now that I say that, it has given me a lighter and more joyful retrospective on the film.
Yeah. I mean, the movie's not like morbidly depressing.
It's not. But it's very tense. Yeah, and it's not tense because you're wondering necessarily what the outcome will be. It's tense because you're there with him.
Yeah.
And for that,
it's almost tense because you know what the outcome will be.
Exactly, yeah. And for that, I think it's an amazingly good and severely underrated film that most people, fans of independent cinema, should see maybe once.
Yeah.
Now that I'm talking about it, I kind of want to go back and see it, but I know it's going to be a long time before I work up the nerve, just because of how good it was. Anyway, I think that's it.
Yeah. Try not to talk quite as loud. Mom and Dad are asleep. You got a little bit fired up there, though. It's okay.
They can't really... You'd be amazed at how poorly sound... like, when I was recording...
Do you mean how well soundproof the house is?
How poorly sound travels is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, did you hear me recording on February 21st when I was recording my brand new EP 1421 in the dead of night? Because the last song that I was recording, it took me a long time to nail, and it was decently loud, and I kept feeling very anxious and kept thinking that I heard people walking around, but you'd be amazed at how quiet sounds are. Roman lips.
Jeez. You would not believe what just came out of there.
Some of that was dramatic. Okay. Roman lips. Omar Rodriguez Lopez is believe it or not, American born. I thought he was Mexican for sure, but I was wrong.
He may be Mexican in terms of like ethnicity. Yeah, okay.
Ethnically Mexican.
He's one of them good old boys.
Mexically Ethnican. Ethnically Mexican. But he was born and raised in Texas, I believe. And he's ridiculous. He is... Did you know that he's into not only music, but he's also into film, and he wrote, directed, and starred in an independent film. I can't remember the title of it. And photography. He's published like 2 or 3 volumes of photography, I think. Huh. And aside from that, I went on his Wikipedia page, and I tried to count his album credits, and I gave up, Jason. I gave up at around 60, and I estimate he has well over 100 album credits, and the guy is 41 years old. He has released 50 some solo albums. Again, I gave up counting.
31.
No, I'm pretty sure he's released 50 solo albums.
Okay.
He's released 3 albums this year, and it's February. He had a band called the Mars Volta, who I then learned split up as either 2012 or 2014, but I can't remember right now. Who were probably what he'd be best known from.
For?
No, he's known from that band.
I guess that's true.
But the guy is just... he's a powerhouse, and he's garnered a significant but small following of loyal fans, as many musicians do in this day and age. And through the magic of the internet, I was suggested his solo work through a guitar forum, and I stumbled upon this album, Roman Lips. And the sound, how would we describe it? It's a heavy, dense, guitar-driven sound with strong elements of synth
and buried percussion.
I don't think the percussion's very buried, but I mean, you do you. It's a free country, free to be wrong. It was released January 13th of this year, the year of our Lord 2017. And yeah, it is Roman Lips. I'll go first, since you went first last time.
You're so kind.
No, wait. No, you go first, because I just went.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Hello again, everybody.
None of them missed you.
My forearms are so sore.
Yeah, his Blackberry is massively heavy, everybody.
Okay.
My forearms are rippling with
lips.
Muscle.
And for the record, these are like lips from Rome instead of lips which Rome.
Which I'm not known for contracting.
Personally, I think Roaming Lips would have been arguably a better album title.
He's got some... Okay, Chocolate Tumor Hormone Parade is an objectively amazing album title. You can't even...
No, I wouldn't.
You can't even laugh at that.
I can.
That's such a good album title. He's got some doozies, though.
Okay. So I think this album is... It's very incredible that someone who puts out so much music can put out something... You got something to say?
I'm sorry.
Okay. So I think it's very impressive that someone can put out this much music and then put this out and it doesn't seem like tired or stale or anything.
And there's so much going on it. Like, it's not a simple album.
No. It's no Bon Iver, that's for sure.
It's not White Stripes. I bet I could bang that out in a weekend.
White Stripes, best music of our time.
Heck off.
Yeah. Meg. I hate Meg White so much. Let's do a podcast
Meg
about that.
White. That's what I call her. Meg White.
Learn to drum, you complete buffoon.
Whoa! Sexist pig!
You know what? You're free to be a drummer.
It's not sexist if it's Meg White. That would be a great t-shirt. It's not sexist.
If there was a dude who's in a band who I knew of who is just as bad as Meg White, I would call him out too. Here. That's not edgy. She doesn't suck because she's a woman. She just...
That's totally true.
Sucks. You know what?
Some dank woman drummers out there.
Oh, man. I mean, the drummer from Skillet, you know.
She's
in Skillet. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know? No. You have my deepest sympathies.
They're headlining Wonder Jam this year.
Frick yeah.
And as a result of that, I somehow ended up on their Facebook page looking at their profile. And I was like, guys, wearing black leather fingerless gloves hasn't been cool since wait a second. No, it's never been cool, actually.
And you're getting too old for it. How old are they? Like 40?
Oh, no, they got to be like 50-ish. They have to be around there. I know.
Their drummer's not that old.
Probably not. Probably maybe late 30s. But it's just, and it is getting cringier and cringier by the year. Man. Like, honestly.
And some people are like, comatose a good album. I'm like, it's really not.
Objectively, but speaking in terms of relativity, it's not good. No. Relative to art.
They have their moments. They're called silences.
Yeah. The spaces in between the tracks.
That's
artful. Artful. It's like when you've got the diarrhea that hurts, and then
just like sploop.
And then sploop, and then the spaces in between the painful burst fire of the diarrhea, where you aren't racked with pain in your abdomen,
but
you're not racked with pains, and it feels euphoric.
Very seldom is diarrhea really painful. It's deeply, deeply uncomfortable. But does it really cause you like pain? Like, it's very uncomfortable and unpleasant and horrible. But I'm never like, oh.
Clearly, you've never drank paint.
True.
Get on with your review.
So as I said, very impressive considering his prolific output. If you showed me this album, I wouldn't guess it was by somebody who had, like dozens and dozens and dozens of album credits to his name. But I found when I first listened to this album, I was like, this is amazing. But then as I dug a little bit deeper, I actually soured on it quite a bit, which we haven't talked about at all. I listened to the whole album tonight as I was driving, just as kind of like a last minute sort of thing.
I probably should have.
And I just thought it really lacked any track to track dynamic or progression or individuality, with the exception of the last track, which I feel was a great last track.
What's it called?
I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks. I gotta be honest with you, I don't have any track specifics down here.
Really? You didn't do your 3 favorites?
No, I should.
Jason! Okay, go find it on your phone.
Okay, I will. Well, I'll do that while you do your review, actually.
Okay, fine.
And then we'll circle back to me.
Good enough.
But I really think that tracks lacked individuality, not compared to other music, because I think it has its own unique sound, but compared to each other. They all seemed very, like, he kept his amps on the same settings and the synth on the same settings. And, like, sometimes there's cool bass, sometimes there's not.
That could be used to describe all music. Sometimes there's cool bass, but sometimes there's not.
Yeah, well, I'm saying that's one of the only variables, I thought.
Jason, I know. I'm just giving you a hard time because we're brothers. Welcome to the Good Ship Brothership, everybody. You're on board with Grant and Jason, 2 brothers who are hilarious and like the arts.
We're not hilarious. Here's the thing.
Yes, we are.
Here's the thing.
Yes, we are.
I think as people... Actually, no, not. I think as people we're not very funny. I think as brothers we're hilarious.
No, I think... I would think, honestly, if I could pick one positive thing about myself, it would be that I'm pretty funny. Always have been.
Yeah. I would say I've always had very good collarbones.
Mine are pretty good, too, now
Look
you
at
mention
this.
it, you know?
I got some depth here. Yeah, you're not bad.
Yeah. And I'm fat, too.
Tweet us pictures of your collarbones.
Yeah, at the... yeah. Okay.
So, one thing I did really appreciate was the fact that it's so heavy without being filled with, like, this testosterone and distortion and double kick, which is fine. But it really is, like, heavy just through the overall mix and, like, feel and tone. And I think that that's something a lot of heavier bands could take note of, which is something that we had discussed earlier. I know.
Yeah.
Ugh. Jeez, I'm getting gassy. This always happens when I stay up late.
Talking does that, though. Especially when you're talking and drinking.
Let's see. I found it very hard to understand his lyrics. And what I wrote down here is... I'm just going to read what I've written. Although this isn't inherently bad, I think if the vocals are hard to understand, the instrumentation has to have accessible depth. Not necessarily tons of layers, but enough hidden stuff that you stay engaged. So my example of that would be 22 A Million by Bon Iver, or Radiohead's album. Heck, what's that album called? The really good one.
Pool? Or In Rainbows.
In Rainbows. Both of those albums, it's like hard to understand the vocalist oftentimes, but it's so airy, so spacious. There's a ton of stuff for you to focus on. This album, I felt like all the music blended together, not necessarily in a bad way, but it was just like one chunk of sound, you know? It was very dense. Yeah. And then his vocals were kind of buried in there, which I do think was to his detriment.
I would liken it to humanity's earliest attempts at crafting gluten-free bread.
Yeah, it's just...
Which we ate... you and I,
and we've never
because we were on the crest. We were the foam on the tip of the gluten-free wave.
Now people talk about hipsters are gluten-free and vegan. We're the OGs.
Oh man, were we ever? Oh, those were bad days. Do you remember some of the stuff we ate, like the potato starch bread and stuff?
Okay, here's a
Hold on, son. You know what the bread was like in those days, people? You know what suet is that you put out for your birds? Imagine suet, a cake of suet with every bit of moisture removed, and it crumbles and sticks to the roof of your mouth, and it's
so good.
That's exactly what gluten-free bread used to be like. Now,
I have a quick story to tell.
Oh yeah, is it about gluten-free bread?
It's about gluten-free food.
We should make this a section on the podcast. Bread talk.
So
toaster talk.
I don't think we've talked about this for years, like literally, despite the fact that it's a shared experience. So back in October of 2008, both when I guess Grant would have been 13 and I would have been 9, our parents went to Africa, and our aunt came from up north to babysit us for the 10 or 11 days. And at the time, there was a type of porridge we like to make, and you do it on a stove with almond milk. We used almond berries, and it was very sweet, had a lot of sugar, made it bearable, but it was also like glue, like caulking for your bathtub.
Oh yeah, that stuff was... I forgot about
But I enjoyed it at the time. But when she was here, our aunt, she was like, you guys surely don't have to use milk for all of this. The package says milk or water. We'll just use water. And so we used water, and it was like, it went from bathtub grout to cement. Do you remember that?
Did it stick to the pot?
I think so. And it was so uninspired.
Well, gluten-free food often is.
That was it. Go ahead.
My
review's done.
Okay,
I also
get that album up.
I know a lot of people actually really hate like numbers on things. For some reason, I enjoy like putting a number on something, even if it's
review.
Yeah, even if it's like a loose number. Like, don't hold me to this. So I said I'd give this a 7 out of 10. I think it was good, but I don't know. I don't think it was great, honestly.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. Whoa! I quite enjoyed this album. It took me by surprise, first off, which is always pleasant. I heard the opening track, which is entitled Roman Lips. Oh no, it's being a BlackBerry and you can't find the album because it says the SIM card's not inserted, but it is inserted.
We might not have the track list, in which case my three favorite tracks are the one, the other, and the third.
I think there's 14 of them. It took me by surprise. I had listened to a little bit of the Mars Volta stuff a number of years ago, but it hadn't really struck me as something that it hadn't really struck me. You know what? I'm just going to leave it at that and walk away from that sentence. Omar is credited on Wikipedia, and this album just came out, so we might find out more, as playing synths, guitar, sequencers, production. And I believe he also sings in all the songs. So the guy's also,
he's a good singer.
Very multi-talented. He is a good singer.
I wish it wasn't buried so much.
And I'll carry that right through to, you really can understand the lyrics.
Can or cannot?
Can't.
Right.
You really cannot understand much of the lyrics at all. There are moments when they poke through, and they seem to be pretty good, for the most part. But of course, his album titles are so weird and out there that you kind of expect his lyrics to do the same. I don't think they're as out there as we think they are. However, and this is coming from me, if I listen to a song like 3 times and I don't get the lyrics, you know me. I'm not impressed. I walk away. I was not bothered by the fact that I couldn't understand the lyrics. And I can only put it down to, I think the production is very cohesive, and it really stays true to itself all throughout the album's experience. It's not an album, like you said, that tries to range... It doesn't traipse across a bunch of different genres. And I kind of like that. Because so many albums do attempt to... They travel from rock, and then they touch on hip-hop, and then they touch on pop, and then there's a little bit of blues in there, but watch out, because here comes the disco song.
Unfortunately, NF doesn't do that.
Yeah, you're right. He just I'm still not convinced that NF songs aren't actually all just the same song.
Wouldn't that be
do you want to hear? Do you want to hear my impression of an NF song?
No. But you could really say the same for Omar.
You just be like, you could not interpret his. Yeah, that's very dank. That's enough of that. I totally disagreed with you when you said that you thought the synth and guitar all sounded the same. I thought there was a pretty wide variance in tones. The problem, or not the problem, the issue is, it's the music comes at you. It's hot and claustrophobic and dense and heavy.
Humid, I would even say.
It's definitely humid. You can feel sweat in these songs. My 3 tracks that I picked were Roman Lips, which is the track that comes off the top, Deadlight, and Still Nobodies.
Is Deadlight that song with the thumping like the bomb, bomb, bomb?
No, it goes bomb, you know, and it's got the amazing squelchy kind of synth bass that gets me song every time. Now, this album hasn't changed anything for me, really. There were a couple good, like in Deadlight, that synth bass bit that I am kind of listening to and studying for tips and tricks on how to make that sort of sound work in my future projects. But it's not something that made me approach anything any differently. I think it's a really cool album, though. I have written down here that the guitar riff in Bitter Tears is amazing, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. Note for note, I can't hum it for you, but it is amazing. And some amazing synth lines and whatnot. It is a sonic buffet, though.
That would be a great band name.
Sonic, yeah, I guess. But it is a great album, like a lot of great albums, I'd imagine, to put on, and I haven't done this yet, put on Drive and just pick things apart. Just go, oh, what's that sound there? And then you listen to that. It's very rich. And
I'd like to deliver an anecdote.
Yeah, okay.
If I may.
Yeah.
So I was driving. I had about like a half-hour drive each way tonight. And so I thought, this is great. I'll put on Roman Lips and I'll really like pull it apart. And I found, and I wasn't tired or anything, but I kept like just zoning out and it would be in the background. And I would say this happened 3 times, and I kept being like, okay, come on, like focus, listen to it. Like you gotta think about it. And then it kind of hit me. I was like, it's such a great album. And this is not a criticism. It's such a great album to have on just when you're like passing the miles, like just in the background. And that's, no bad thing. And so I do think it's really good for that. And then like the repetition doesn't bother me at all. So you just mentioned that, so I don't know.
Yeah, I also think that the album is deceptively broad, stylistically speaking. I think that on a couple initial passes, you give it a couple of listens, and it does sound very samey, because not even necessarily because of the production, but just because A, one guy is doing so much of it, and B, he's not trying, like I said, he's not trying to traipse across a whole bunch of genres. And C, is just the production, right?
But listen to Rodriguez. They're all kind of produced the same, and it's one guy, and he doesn't traipse across a lot of genres. But his tracks have so much more individuality.
But therein lies what the first thing I said that you forgot.
Wow, that got passive aggressive really quickly.
Captain Attention Man.
That was like,
to the rescue. Captain Attention Man. It was passive aggressive, and I meant for it to seem more comedic than it did. I legitimately wasn't meant.
This is where all the fan theories start that you hate me.
Yeah, no kidding. But no, I think part of that is because Omar did so much of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly all made by the same guy, so of course it's going to sound a little samey, and maybe that's just what he's shooting for. But there are some in some of the latter tracks on the album, some really interesting like pop melodies.
Yeah,
that he sings,
fair.
and it was some soaring even melodies that are kind of distorted and washed out and buried. And I found them just surprising and kind of rewarding. A couple listens in, it was still giving back to me. I don't think it's an amazing album, but I think it's a really, really good album, and I think it's better than I know yet, perhaps. And I think that I don't know. Like it feels like I'm missing something from it.
I know what you mean, yeah.
Because I feel like I should love it, but I don't love it. But that sounds like I'm insulting it or putting it down or saying it's not good. But it's a very good album.
Yeah, I enjoyed it for sure. I think it's a very,
very good album. Very, very well made. I loved the production. Really, I loved the production. Yeah. I do like a good dense sounding album. Take a listen to David Bowie's Heroes. Very dense, hot mix on that. But yeah, I just haven't been able to really make that deeper level of connection with it, and that's okay.
I have one closing thing to say once you're done. Are you done?
I'm done.
I think, and saying this as a artist and creator myself, it's important not to like overthink things and to be intuitive as a creator and as an artist. But at the same time, I think it's also important to kind of wait until you have something to say. And I just feel like he can't have as much to say as like to justify the amount of content he puts out. Well, and I think it'd be very interesting to see him go on hiatus for a little while and then put something out that was like truly special.
It's some people's modus operandi though to put out, and who knows, maybe he did have something, maybe he does have something. That's exactly what tortures me. What is he trying to say? Because I don't know what he's trying to say.
As much as he has and have it be like truly, truly good.
Well, here's the thing though. With the amount of stuff he puts out, he could be making a massive amount of small statements as opposed to a small amount of massive statements. That's true. So he's definitely not operating on a large scale in terms of the concepts of his work, or at least I doubt he is. But and there are also just tons of bands who are considered very, very good, or artists, not necessarily bands, who don't do big, broad, concept or themed albums, and they just write about kind of whatever strikes them from track to track. So I don't know. I don't think that's not something that really bothered me.
That's true.
But there you have it.
So I feel
it's a good album.
I think I felt quite similar about both. I think I liked Locke more than Roman Lips, but I think I felt the same in terms of I enjoyed both, but I just didn't love both.
It's really hard to say that I liked Locke though, because of like we said how.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it.
Us feel. Yeah, I didn't enjoy the experience, the emotions it put me through, but how the fact that it was able to make me go through those emotions was deeply impressive.
Yeah.
And nothing short of moving afterward. And it has been a movie that stuck with me, and it's stuck with me more than Roman Lips has.
Yeah.
I think I liked both of these things more than you liked them.
Yeah, that's fair.
But like I said, neither of them really transformed me. Neither of them really changed anything for me.
And before we wrap up too much, my 3 tracks that I'm going to pick are Bitter Tears.
Yep. I had a note about that one.
Deadlight, I would have to agree. That bass is just like...
It really is thumping.
And then I would say Fish Tank really took me off guard. Just this last time I listened to it, I was like, man, this is like really unique and different and like a total exception to the rule of this album.
Are there 14 tracks in there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
See,
14.
And that's an issue for me. Like right off the bat, 14-track album. He could have released a 10-track album, even a 7 or 8. Like he could have halved the track length, and the album would have been better than it is.
Yeah.
9 times out of well, not 9 times out. Well, I'm gonna say 9 times out of 10, an album can stand to lose at least one track.
Yep.
And oftentimes it can stand to lose more, and sometimes it can stand to lose a whole half of the album. Looking at you, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Standing by to see the show. All of the Red Hot Chili Peppers albums are huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all like 20 tracks.
All the ones that I can think of, anyways.
Dudes, just chill and only release good music. And maybe broaden your palette a little bit.
Be more like our friends, Tom York and Johnny Greenwood.
Yeah. But actually, no, you know what? I'm not even going to.
We got to wrap up.
Omar Rodriguez played with some of the guys from Red Hot Chili Peppers, so that's the end of that. And now I guess we'll just let this play out a little bit.
Land ho.
Yeah, land ho, everybody.
Can you hear the land?
We're nearing the land of hoes. So get ready to pick one up and do some gardening. I'm Grant.
I'm Jason.
And you've been with us on the Good Ship Brothership. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, and good night.
But we don't know what.